So I just finished episode 1 of Netflix Avatar the Last Airbender, and I'm freaking shook. I had a feeling that this show was going to be good from the trailers, but I'm not gonna lie, I get really nervous every time I see Netflix going to make a live action of one of my favorite childhood shows. I think what actually might have surprised me the most was just how good all of the new added scenes to the live action actually were. Hello everyone, I'm Finn. Welcome back to Finn Films. Join me today as we discuss everything I liked and some of the stuff I didn't like from episode 1 of Netflix's live action Avatar the Last Airbender. So if you've seen any of my other content where we've talked about the Avatar live action and my predictions and thoughts on this show, you'll know that in general, I've been pretty positive on at least how good I thought the Avatar live action is going to be. And let's just say that I am pleasantly surprised with Netflix. Avatar the Last Airbender is one of my favorite shows from my childhood, and it's just one of my favorite shows in general, as this show is just an amazing show, not just an amazing kids show. So the idea of Netflix potentially ruining it with a live action was a little bit scary, though I've always said repeatedly that if they are true to the animated story and follow the story and the characters as close as they possibly can, the live action will be good because of just how genuinely good the story and the characters are. It's safe to say that Netflix has done that and more, but like I said in the intro, what really surprised me was just how good a lot of the new added scenes to the live action were. In general, in my opinion, live actions tend to get ruined whenever they mess around too much with the original source material story, so you can imagine my surprise when I see episode 1 of the Avatar the Last Airbender live action opening up with a flashback to Fire Lord Sozin and the comet and the start of the 100-Year War. So in general, episode 1 of the Avatar live action roughly follows pretty accurately episodes 1 to 3 of the animated series, a prediction that I had made back when we had watched one of the trailers in one of my other videos. The first 20 minutes of the episode are a flashback to Fire Lord Sozin and the invasion of the Fire Nation, the start of the 100-Year War. As well, we get some really cool scenes of Aang and Monk Gyatso and just the Southern Air Temple completely flourishing with all of these airbenders. Obviously, shortly afterwards, we know what happens with the Fire Nation and the horrible destruction that ensues. I think this was a really cool and good choice by Netflix to open up with this flashback to give maybe new fans, new watchers to the Avatar series context for the greater, war that the world is undergoing, as obviously the start of the Avatar series happens 100 years after this flashback. And I really just got to give these guys props when props are due. They did an awesome job in capturing the feeling of the Avatar world. The sets are crazy. I don't know how much of this is green screen and how much of this is an on-shoot location somewhere, but it looks absolutely great. The wardrobes look absolutely great, and a lot of the acting is really, really good. I really love the way that Aang's actor is playing Aang. I think he does a really good job in capturing Aang's innocence, his naivety, and just his fun, happy-go-lucky nature, especially in the first, season or 2 of the animated series, and then Aang's character slowly starts to morph and change and grow as he accepts his responsibility of the Avatar. There's a lot of things that you could criticize M. Night Shyamalan's Avatar movie for, and I think one of the biggest ones is just a lack of soul and lack of character from basically all of the characters, especially Aang in that movie. But it's really good to see that the characters, at least so far in episode 1, seem to be doing a much better job of capturing, the character traits that really make these characters tick. We flash forward 100 years to the Southern Water Tribe, where we are introduced to everyone's favorite brother-sister duo, Sokka and Katara. I think they did a good job of introducing Katara and Sokka, and I think that their actress and actors, respectively, do a good job in capturing, kind of the essence of what these characters are. Well, I do think that Sokka could maybe be a little more goofy, as he was pretty misogynistic and just a goofy little early on in the animated series. In general, I think that both of them have their performances, at least in episode 1, are perfectly serviceable, and they do a pretty good job of capturing, everything that these characters are all about. Obviously, Katara and Sokka find Aang, who has been frozen for 100 years, as Aang went into the Avatar state when he was caught in a storm and froze himself to protect himself, but now he's back. We then flash over to everyone's favorite angry little boy and his sweet uncle, Zuko and Iroh. I gotta say, I absolutely love Iroh's actor. I think he does a really good job in capturing Iroh. Zuko's actor as well, I think, is really good. My only critique for Zuko's actor is I think that maybe he could have been a little more aggro, we'll say, because Zuko is an angry little boy early on in season 1 of Avatar. And while I do think the actor does do a good job in capturing Zuko's kind of angst and his desperation to capture the Avatar, I do think he could be a little more angry. Flashback to the Water Tribe. Aang wakes up. They give him the lore dump of what's happened over the last 100 years. And then Katara's grandmother hit us with the water, earth, fire, air line. And I absolutely lost my shit. Obviously, Zuko is now aware that Aang, the Avatar, has returned to the world. He heads to Katara and Sokka's village, where there's a big face-off. Aang fighting off a lot of these firebenders, though eventually he willingly decides to let them capture him so he can save, Katara, Sokka, and the rest of this village. I just want to say the show visually looks amazing. The bending looks sick as fuck. They've done an awesome job in really capturing, the special effects quality to sell this idea, the reality of bending. They do make it feel very real, which I think is really cool because one of the coolest things about the Avatar animated series was the bending and the fact that bending is based off of, martial arts and just the complex bending fights and the potential that you can make some really cool choreography fights, and we've seen that in the Avatar animated series. So Aang lets himself get captured, getting taken onto Zuko's ship, and we get this really cool new added scene, this interaction between Iroh and Aang, and I thought this scene was awesome. It gives us some kind of context for the world as Aang asks Iroh several questions, namely, why did the Fire Nation start the 100-year war? And it's super interesting getting to hear Iroh's response. They do a really good job of already kind of showing us glimmers of Iroh's character. Of course, if you're an Avatar fan, you know all about Uncle Iroh and the fact that he was once the former crown prince and was once not a very good guy, but after losing his son, his heart mellowed. He became very anti-violent and didn't really agree with the tactics and the war that the Fire Nation is waging. So it's really cool seeing them already kind of hinting at this aspect of Iroh's character through this new scene. Aang eventually gets away. In the animated series, there was a really cool fight that Aang had with Zuko on board of the ship here. I was kind of sad they didn't include that, but that's fine. They can't include every single scene. And from here, Aang and Katara and Sokka fly off on Appa, heading to the Southern Earth Temple, where our episode ends as we see Aang witnessing the destruction that happened to his friends, his family, and his teacher, Monk Gyatso, and he enters the Avatar state out of just sheer emotional distress. Eventually, though, Katara manages to calm him down, and our episode ends. In general, I think everything about this episode was great. I would probably give it an 8 out of 10. I actually really enjoyed a lot of the new scenes and changes that were made for this episode, namely the flashback context for the first 20 minutes, because in general, after that, from 20 minutes onwards, not much was changed from the animated series. Things were just slightly sped up because, well, this is a live action. They obviously can't include every single scene from the animated series, but like I've said multiple times in my other Avatar videos so far, it seems like they're going to be pretty loyal to this story, trying to hit every single major story beat from Avatar the Last Airbender. Like I said earlier, it seems like one episode of the live action is equivalent to roughly 1 to 3 episodes of the animated series, which would make sense as, roughly this is the only way that they could do every single thing in the first season of the animated series and fit that into 8 episodes, 1 hour long each of the live action. Really, only my biggest critique is kind of how they've written Sokka. He's much more goofier and dorky and kind of misogynistic early on in Avatar, and while they capture some of these things in the first episode, I think that out of our team Avatar, so far at least, it seems like Sokka's, whether it's the acting or how they wrote his character for the live action, it just feels a little bit weaker when you compare it to the other ones. In general, though, I don't really have much to complain about for episode 1 of Netflix's live action Avatar the Last Airbender, and if the rest of this show continues to build upon what we've seen in episode 1, I think this show is going to be great. Now, obviously, I've only watched 1 episode so far, so this show could go downhill at some point in the season, or there could be some drastic changes to the story, though I highly doubt it. In general, it seems like Netflix understands what makes Avatar the Last Airbender such a great story. It has an amazingly fleshed out world with really fleshed out, dynamic, interesting characters that undergo a really major character growth and changes throughout our story. It's this perfect blend of an awesome, fun world with relatable, dynamic characters that you get invested in, and to top it all off, You have cool action scenes with crazy bending powers. Let me know your thoughts about episode 1 of the Avatar live action in the comment section down below. What did you like? What did you not like? I want to see it. As always, guys, if you enjoyed the video, learned something new, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. More Avatar content on the way. Now, if you'll excuse me, I gotta go binge watch the rest of this show.